Good evening, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. And today is Election Day, Commitment 2018. Let's begin. First up, record turnout expected as voters hit polls for Election Day. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Ray Brewer.
Out the door when it matters most. For more than a decade, he's been right there, everywhere. And when American jobs are on the line, he leads the charge. ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast, and we thank you.
As soon as the polls opened in Manchester, the lines began to form. Ward 1 is usually one of the busiest in Manchester, and early on it lived up to its reputation. Elsewhere around New Hampshire, there were similar scenes.
We had traffic issues here, parking issues, and we had a line all the way to the dump of the road.
Sean Murphy brought his daughter to the polls.
It's a civic duty, I think, and it's my responsibility as a citizen, and I'm trying to teach that to her, now, and then hopefully she'll remember later.
The Secretary of State is predicting a record turnout for a midterm election, and in Hooksett, there was a strong showing.
We're expecting about a 70%, 7,000 people coming today by the end of the day, and right now we're at 1,000 in 2 hours. We're kind of hitting that pace.
In Auburn, Ron Joffrey brought his grandchildren with him to vote. Joffrey believing if you don't vote, you shouldn't complain.
My thought process is if you have an opinion about what's going on in the country, you need to vote.
Much has been made this election cycle of the divided electorate. You didn't have to look hard to find evidence of that.
There's a lot of things going on, I feel like, that need a change, and I'm hoping that a lot of people step out to vote for that change. I'm a staunch Democrat.
I'm voting Republican all the way, and that's what I want. Donald Trump has done excellent for our country, and I want everything to continue as it has been.
As you take a live look at the polls here at Ward 1 in Manchester, once again, bear in mind that the polling hours across the state differ. So you want to make sure you check in with your town or city clerk so you don't miss out on your opportunity to cast your vote. Reporting live in Manchester, Ray Brewer, WMUR News 9.
All right, Ray, thank you. And Granite Staters are voting for both local and national offices today. In the race for governor, incumbent Republican Chris Sununu is seeking re-election. Former state senator, Democrat Molly Kelly, and Libertarian Joletta Jarvis are hoping to unseat Sununu for the corner office in Concord. In the 1st Congressional District, Libertarian Dan Belforti, Republican Eddie Edwards, and Democrat Chris Pappas are all hoping to fill the seat held by Carol Shea Porter, who is retiring. And take a look at the 2nd Congressional District. Incumbent Democratic Congresswoman Annie Custer is being challenged by Republican Steve Negron and also Libertarian Justin O'Donnell.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And as you heard from Ray Brewer, the polling places vary. Some polling places close at 7 p.m. and some close at 8 p.m. tonight. So it's very important to check and go out and vote. I went and I voted today, and look what I got after I voted. So go and vote, everyone. Please vote. Very important. And once all the polls are closed, we will bring you full 2018 general election results right here on the Riley King Network. Results will begin coming in after the final polls close at 8 p.m. And again, for the governor's race, incumbent GOP Chris Sununu against Molly Kelly and Libertarian Joletta Jarvis. And for U.S. District 1, Democratic candidate Chris Pappas, GOP candidate Eddie Edwards, and Libertarian Dan Beauferti. And U.S. House District 2, Annie Custer, incumbent, Democrat, GOP, Steve Negron, and Justin O'Donnell, Libertarian. And then question 1 and question 2 on the ballots. And once those polls close, we will bring you live coverage right here on the Riley King Network. Join me this evening for election night coverage. Also, we will have an interactive map for the Democrats and Republicans. We will track those tonight once the polls are closed. "2018 election races we're watching around the country." Let's take a look at the video. Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And congressional balance of power looms large on election day. With all 435 seats in the U.S. House are up for re-election, and 35 senators' seats are in play, as are almost 40 governorships and the balance of power in virtually every state legislation. While he is not on the ballot, Trump acknowledged on Monday that the 2018 midterms represent a referendum of his presidency. He also continued, as he does daily, that if the Democrats win, they will look to roll back everything he's tried to accomplish. It's all fragile, he said. Vehicle backs over woman at Windham polling location. A woman was seriously injured Tuesday at a polling location in Windham when a car backed over her, police said. Witnesses said a couple who had just voted at a Windham high school got in the car and a man backed out of a spot. Police said it appears the driver thought he had put the car in drive, but instead left it in reverse when he accelerated. He hit the woman, pinning her under the car, police said. Police officers who were working at the polling site said the woman was conscious and a nurse who was nearby helped her until rescuers arrived. Firefighters used hydraulic tools to lift the car off the woman, and she was taken to a hospital. Police said the woman's condition was unknown, but she appeared to have suffered serious injuries. The crash is under investigation. Woman dies after crash at Nashua polling location. A woman in Nashua died Tuesday after suffering a medical emergency while driving at a polling location and crashing into two parked cars, police said. The crash happened at 8 a.m. at the Bicentennial Elementary School. The woman's identity was not released, but police describe her as an older woman. A police officer working a detail at the polling location saw the crash and smashed the window of the woman's car to get her out. CPR was performed, but she died at a hospital, police said. The officer suffered minor cuts when he smashed the window of the car. No one was in the parked cars. New Hampshire Supreme Court denies Owen Labree's appeal in sexual assault case. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9.
A 3-0 vote, the state Supreme Court denied Owen Labree's request for a new trial on 3 issues. First, and perhaps most importantly, the court found that the former St. Paul's prep school student did use his computer to lure a then 14-year-old undergraduate in order to have a sexual encounter on campus, in a tradition known as the Senior Salute. Related to that, Labree was found guilty of 3 counts of sexual assault, 1 count of endangering the welfare of a child, and 1 count of using computer services for that purpose. In its opinion, Chief Justice Robert Lynn wrote for the court that there was ample evidence of the defendant's intent to solicit, seduce, lure, or entice the victim to engage in sexual conduct through electronic means. This means Labrie is guilty of a felony and must register as a sex offender for life. The court also found that the defense failed to show other aspects of its appeal, including the court's decision not to allow certain cross-examination of a state's witness, and that the trial court made a mistake when the judge didn't object to a portion of the state's closing argument. This is not the end of the appeal process. Labrie has another hearing before the Supreme Court for ineffective assistance of counsel at the end of the month. Reporting live, I'm Andy Hirschberger, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And now let's take a look at your U.S. stock market and see how your U.S. stock market closed for this Tuesday evening. And here's a look at your U.S. stock market. Your Dow Jones Industrial Average closed in the green and went up. Your Nasdaq closed in the green and went up. S&P 500 closed in the green and went up. Gold closed flat. Oil closed flat. U.S. 10-year closed flat. Euro/USD closed in the red and went down. And VIX closed in the red and went down. Dow rises more than 170 points as Wall Street awaits midterm election results. Stocks rose on Tuesday as investors eagerly awaited the results of much anticipated midterm elections, which could have significant implications for investors. And let's take a listen to this live stream right now of ABC News. Voters across the country head to the polls. Let's listen in.
Of voters in North Dakota, 30 years of people. And to me, I have no regrets. Are you really? Oh my God!
Heidkamp won her seat in 2012 by just roughly 3,000 votes, so she's keenly aware that every vote counts.
The first thing you have to be concerned about is that people who have a right to vote won't be able to vote.
Secretary of State Jaeger denies the voter ID law was designed to disenfranchise Native Americans.
Nothing has ever happened in this office to target anybody.
But just this week, one of the tribes, along with 6 individuals, took emergency legal action seeking relief from this requirement that Native Americans who live on or near reservations.
Okay, and that is part of the video for all of you. Long lines, glitches greet voters at the polls. Let's take a listen to the video from ABC News.
At Farmers, we've seen almost everything, so we know how to cover almost anything, even a huge drag. Nothing worth losing sleep over because we covered it. Talk to farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
To prove again that this is their home. It is despicable, and I find it unforgivable, but it's the law. So, we have to deal with it.
Matthews began working with Standing Rock before the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Okay, this is not the video we want. Sorry about that, everyone. Election Day 2018 is finally here. This year's midterms are the first nationwide contest since 2016, when President Donald Trump was elected. Many, including Trump, see this election as a referendum on his presidency. There were long lines at the polls, and still a lot of polling locations are open, and still long lines. And that does it for the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great night, everyone. I'll see you back here later on this evening for my Election Day night special right here on the Riley King Network. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Good night, everyone. Bye.